Well, hey, Diet Disruptors, Carrie here, and I have a very special episode, something we've actually never done before. And if you are watching live on the video, if you're listening, you're not going to be able to see this, but if you're on the video, you're going to be able to see my shirt. My shirt says world's worst vegan. And it's not that I'm against being vegan, I'm just a meat eater. And when there's a lot of people out there that think I have to go vegan or plant-based because it's healthier, I'll argue all day long that that's not necessarily the case, because we can go in every direction regardless of whether we're eating meat or going vegan. But I actually have with me today the world's best vegan. Bev, you actually need the shirt for world's best vegan. And we're going to talk all about a plant-based lifestyle with Coach Bev herself. Coach Bev is one of our amazing coaches who specializes in plant-based eating. And the thing is, it wasn't always that way, was it, Bev? Like, you were plant-based eating, but you didn't realize that you were missing a huge part of the puzzle. So we're going to talk about that today. How excited are you about talking about plant-based stuff?
I'm so excited. I'm so ready to let the world know that you can eat PFC3 and be plant-based.
Yeah. And when we talk about PFC3, we're talking about the foundational concept of balancing our blood sugar. That is what we know every body needs. Whether you are vegan, vegetarian, or a meat eater, whether you're the world's worst vegan or the world's best vegan, you need to balance your blood sugar, whether you're 2 or 92. That is the core function of our body. The reason why we are gaining weight and we don't understand it, it's because our blood sugar is not stabilized. If we are have a metabolic disease, all metabolic disease, diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, even stroke and cancer can be all attributed to a dysregulated blood sugar. If you have cravings, if you have energy issues, if you're not sleeping well, the very first thing we have to do before you go down any rabbit hole is look at your blood sugar. And Bev made a decision years ago to go plant-based. No, I'm not fully plant-based. Like I said, I eat animal protein. Bev made the decision to go vegan, and we're going to talk about that decision. We're going to talk about living a plant-based lifestyle, and we're going to talk about, is it better? Is it worse? It's not about better or worse. It's about balancing your blood sugar, and you can do that in any way, shape, or form, but we also want to be healthy. And just because we're eating plant-based doesn't necessarily mean our body is getting healthier. In fact, there's a lot of studies out there of a lot of people who eat plant-based that have significant health challenges when it comes to certain minerals and vitamins and deficiencies and even gut health. And Bev, the reason why we love her and why this is such an important episode is because she has really cracked the code on how you can go plant-based or incorporate more plant-based eating into your routine without worrying about any of those other underlying issues. And I should say, Bev lives in an RV. So on top of plant-based living is harder. We're just going to be real honest with you. It's harder. But Bev does it living in an RV with Ray. Ray just walked in. There's no hiding anybody, right? You can't go to your studio. Ray walks in. Hi, Ray.
Hi.
We're so excited. There really are plant-based couple. Let's be honest. Ray is right there with Bev, just integrating this lifestyle into his own. It wasn't his choice to go vegan. Bev was like, we're going vegan. He's like, all right, honey, I got you. So Bev, let's talk about going vegan, why you made that decision, and what life was like for you when you really found me. I think, like, what were your struggles as a plant-based eater?
Yeah. Well, when we decided to go vegan, it was kind of on a spur of the moment thing. And I had this just very emotional experience that kind of turned us on that path. And once we did it, we were like, okay, well, now how do we do this? And we kind of just jumped into it and learned how to do it. But the problem is that when we met you and when we came to you, we were still struggling with so many of the things that I had always struggled with, particularly. So the things like, not sleeping real soundly, blood sugar, crashes, lots and lots of self-talk about why wasn't I succeeding at this? Why was I still on this roller coaster?
Yeah,
And
because weight loss for you was also a big piece of this. And that's why the why has to be really strong. We can't think we're just going to go plant-based because we're just going to go on a diet and lose weight. Like, this has to be internally a very strong decision. And you had to grapple with, like, all right, why am I really doing this? And you really decided this is super, super important to you. But you also knew that these other pieces were not, like, you couldn't figure out how to make it all work. Am I right?
Right. That's exactly it. Yeah, that's exactly it. We knew that our why was strong, and it wasn't because of weight loss at all. It wasn't around that. That wasn't our motivation going plant-based, but it was still there internally for me, just as it had always been for 30, 40 years. And so that was still part of my story. And when we found you, Ray said he would do anything to help me. He would do anything to support and get me to a place where I was loving myself just as much as he loved me. And so when we heard about this, we thought the pieces are going to come together, and we knew that we could do it plant-based. We didn't know how, again, just like when we went plant-based, we didn't know how, but we knew that we could because we were so internally, emotionally invested in it. So we were going to make it happen no matter what.
And so I love that. And when you came to us, I always said, like, we can make this concept work in any lifestyle, but the amount of dedication and focus into a purely plant-based lifestyle that truly balances your blood sugar and gets you to optimal health is it's pretty a time-consuming, focused, disciplined requirement, right? And challenge. And when you came on board, you were like, okay, we know that Carrie and her team aren't necessarily fully focused on how to support me as a plant-based eater, but you trusted that we would work with you, we would figure it out, because we knew the foundational elements of it, but we would also work with you on your mindsets around dieting and your value. And so I'm so glad that you trusted us when we weren't fully in a place to really, truly support you. But thanks to you, we are now so much stronger than we ever were, because we have this expertise that you and Ray have now really dug into for a long time. And so now it's in a place where all of our coaches are well trained. I am even more trained, because it was always a little bit, intimidating for me, because it just felt like you had to crack the code on a whole lot of things. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to crack the code on how to eat plant-based, either if you want to be the world's best vegan, or if you feel like you're the world's worst vegan, but sometimes you just like to eat without, animal protein. Either way, we are going to take care of you. So we have 3 main learnings for you today that are really going to help you take your plant-based desires and make them absolutely possible. So we've got Bev and Ray here today, and I'm really excited. And I know when you were living plant-based before you met us, you didn't really know the components of these 3 things. And so now that you do, and that you teach it, and that you coach it, we're going to be able to really dig in. And nobody else going plant-based is going to have the same struggles anymore because of you. So
yes, that's very true. And I
so
love that, because there were so many missing pieces.
There were. Just eating vegetables is not going to cut it.
Yep, for sure.
Or eating like, vegan processed food all the time, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We
So
always tell people like chips and salsa is vegan, but
yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's not how we want to eat, right?
Well, we
Yeah.
want to also get to our optimal health. We want to be able to make sure that a lot of the deficiencies that happen in vegan lifestyles that are well documented, often just because they don't have the knowledge. I actually have a family member who's a dietitian and a vegan and has just has doesn't know any of this,
Yeah.
any of
Wow.
the stuff
Yeah.
that you will be teaching today. And I just think
Well,
that
I
that's
hope she will get on this and listen.
exactly.
I
Because there's
do.
a lot of confusing information. I mean, we think there's confusing information out there about dieting. The
Yeah.
confusing information out there about plant-based eating is just outrageous. And you guys really, truly have worked with us to crack the code. So this is one of the most exciting podcasts I think we've ever done. All right. So let's go. We're going to go through 3 tips today. What is our first learning, our first lesson? And Bev was a teacher. So just like me. So I love that we are going to literally educate today. All right. So Bev, number 1, what is it?
The first thing we're going to talk about is volume and variety. And Ray was also a trainer in his past life as well. And so it's so fun to be able to do this together to share with you all. So volume and variety. First of all, the volume part is that you need to think in large amounts because you are essentially cutting out that meat component. You need to fill your plate, your bowl. You need to fill it and fill it up again, so the volume is a huge part of it.
Now, it's interesting that you say that because I had a client who came to me years ago and she's like, Carrie, I went vegan and I gained 25 pounds. And so when people hear volume, that could scare them, but understand going vegan, we're going to talk more about this, means you are most likely on a blood sugar roller coaster. And that was the cause, not because she was eating too much, because volume is super important.
And it also depends on what you're eating for the volume as well. But that comes into the, balancing your proteins, fats, and carbs too. So it sure depends. And one of our focuses has always been on eating more whole food, plant-based, if you want to put it that way, than eating processed foods. And that was, that was a long time ago. But the second V though is variety, and it comes into the volume. It comes into the volume.
What did he say? I missed that.
He said
I corrected her, but I was wrong.
He said do volume. I was like, oh, I already did that one.
Got it. I love it. He's trying to coach you on the side and you're like, right, I got this.
That's awesome. So the variety piece that comes in with your volume, you want to make sure that you have several different components of whole food, plant-based pieces on your plate. So we always talk about a rule of 3 for a couple of reasons, but it's a great rule with variety as well, because you need to make sure that you're not just eating that one component in a large amount, but you're mixing and matching a lot of things together.
That is huge. So when you're at the grocery store and you see all these amazing vegetables and fruits and seeds and nuts, you got to go with variety. And then that will help you with volume as well.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And we'll dig more into why variety is so important, but why don't you give us a few examples of some ways that you kind of make your meals together that have volume and variety?
Yeah, for sure. So when we're thinking about what we want to eat, usually we can just talk about maybe our dinner meal. When we're thinking about what we might want for that, we always first think about what 3 vegetables do we want to have. And so that's always the basis of where we start.
So that gets you variety and you're going with the rule of 3.
Yeah, exactly. Now, if we add in 4 or 5, that's perfectly fine too. So, which we do sometimes, just depending on what meal we're preparing.
Love it.
So we always start there. But sometimes we have a thought in our mind also of like what we want the outcome to be. So if you're just thinking about, like, let's just say chili, it's fall and chili's a warm comfort food there, but eating it plant-based may look a little bit different. We'll talk about how beans can come into the picture as well. But our chili, we just start with vegetables. So we just start with the tomatoes and the broccolis and the cauliflowers. And sometimes it's like whatever we have in our fridge goes in there.
Yeah, I love that. So when
Yeah.
you're really thinking about volume, and we're going to get into this more in your second point, but when volume and variety really goes along with that third V of vegetables, wouldn't you say? So when we're really thinking about volume and variety, we're really referring to vegetables. Would that be accurate?
I think that's definitely accurate. Would you say so
Yeah, I
too?
think so,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would.
Because to your point, beans are very dense, and we're going to talk about that. And if they get out, if everybody's listening to this and say, well, Bev and Carrie and Ray said volume, and then we're going super high on beans, we're going to tell you why that's actually going to wreak havoc on your blood sugar. So when you think volume and variety, think V vegetables for the most,
I love
for
that.
the most
Yep,
part. I
I
think it's a
love
good
that
rule
because
of thumb. All right, so let's
yeah,
move into our second kind of teaching learning in order to be able to keep plant-based either lifestyle or integration to your existing lifestyle as effective as possible.
yes, absolutely. So, so should we talk about complete proteins? Would that
Yeah,
be
I
a
think
good
that's
place to go
important. Let's
with
talk
this one?
about, yeah, and because I think that's really the second piece of this, which is
Yeah,
super important that a lot of vegans miss, or a lot of people are afraid of because they don't
right.
understand.
Exactly. So whether you're fully vegan like us, vegetarian, or you just want a plant-based meal any time of your week or your day, after you choose your base, of vegetables, then we think about what proteins we can add to it. So I'm going to talk to you about 3 proteins that we always have in our cupboard that aren't well known as far as building this protein base. And then I'll talk about the ones that are typical.
But
So
let's
the
talk
3.
first about the importance of protein
Mm,
and why plant-based eating, when it comes to protein, is so challenging.
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's not as easy when you're eating a meat-based meal because you can generally pick any protein and that counts for your protein for the meal. So you can choose a portion of chicken or you can choose a portion of beef, and that pretty much counts your protein for the meal.
Because that's considered a complete protein.
Right.
So our
Mhm.
body has all sorts of amazing things that it does naturally. But one thing it can't do on its own is really kind of produce these 9 amino acids, these 9 amino acids that our body really, really needs, but cannot produce itself, can be found in any complete protein. But when
Yes,
you're talking about being vegan and using vegetables as your protein, because all vegetables have protein, it's
exactly.
an incomplete protein because you're not getting all 9 of those amino acids in there. And so your job has been, Bev and Ray, to figure out how do you make incomplete protein complete and make sure that you're doing it in a way that's really actually accurate. Because I will tell you, in all of the years of studying, I have heard so many vegans say, oh no, it's just have something high in protein, you're fine. Or overall, you'll be fine. Just, keep eating your vegetables, or, like really no science behind it. And you
Mhm.
and Ray have dug deep into really understanding how to make incomplete proteins complete. So
Mm,
let's dig
Yep.
into that.
yeah,
And then I want to hear
absolutely.
about your proteins.
One of the things, go back to the rule of 3, is one of the main reasons for having 3 is you build 3 different vegetables and you end up getting a complete protein out of that. May not be as high a protein, but it is complete. And then Bev has figured out the other options to it. So that's my input. Okay.
Yeah. So that's right. That rule of 3 vegetables, and it's an industry standard to kind of do the rule of 3 there, because different plants have different amino acids. So if you combine the 3, then you're more likely to get all of your 9 essential amino acids that
Exactly.
make up that
And like
complete protein.
Ray just said, because they may not be as full as an animal-based protein, that's where volume comes in. Because then you
Yes.
have more of those, you're going to have the higher level of what your body needs.
Exactly, right.
Great.
And then the 3 that we kind of rely on that are in our in our cupboards all the time and in a lot of our meals. The first one is nutritional yeast. You add nutritional yeast to a meal when you need protein. It doesn't have the fat or the carbs in it. So when you need a protein source, you can add nutritional yeast.
And where do you, I mean, even as the world's worst vegan, I have nutritional yeast. We love to use it. It's a superfood. What kind of things do you put, nutritional yeast into?
We actually put it
like
in
a Parmesan cheese.
Yeah, we actually cook it right in with a lot of things. And then if we want more, we can sprinkle it on top. So literally almost everything we found, I mean, except for your sweets, that you could add nutritional yeast to. So we'll put it in, we'll put it in our chilies. We'll put it in we have like stuffed mushrooms with a sauce over the top of them.
I even put it in my dressing.
Gravies out of them.
Yeah, gravy, salad dressings. I mean, like mac and cheese. Like, add that nutritional yeast to that if you were just going vegetarian and had dairy. Okay, I love it.
Yeah, it's so versatile. You can almost swap it as like a flour base sometimes too if you want a thickener for things. So we put it in a whole bunch of things. And then the second one is brewer's yeast. Now, brewer's yeast, not a lot of people know about, but again, it's just another, I guess a consistency is kind of like nutritional yeast. It's a powder, but it is high in both protein and carbs. So when you're thinking about your balance, if you need some more protein and carbs, then you can add that. The only difference is that brewer's yeast is a little bitter. So you want to add it to meals that are maybe that have a stronger base to them, like your tacos, your salsa, your things like that, to add it to those so that you can increase your protein. And it's also a complete protein in and of itself.
Yeah, that's amazing. There are vegan proteins that are complete. And so when you're layering them on top of each other, you're really going to make sure you're getting enough of them. I love that. I got brewer's yeast because of you. That was actually a new learning for me. So I'm super appreciative of that. And when you're talking about protein and carbs, remember, we are looking at eating PFC3, protein, fat, and carb every 3 hours. That is the very simplistic way of kind of sharing how do we keep our blood sugar balance. Now, it looks a little different for everybody to make sure we're really personalizing it, but that is a really great rule of thumb to be able to start practicing how to balance your blood sugar. So for vegans and vegetarians, we really got to be thinking about the fact that a lot of those proteins that you're going to be bringing in are also carbs, or they may also be fat. So that brewer's yeast is a combination of both. All right, what's the third?
Yeah, the third one is our hemp hearts or hemp seeds. And we add hemp when we need protein and fat. So we kind of have narrowed it down to those three because one adds protein, one adds proteins and carbs, and one adds proteins and fat. So depending on how we need to balance our meal, those are what we add into them. That's
Those
kind of like
are
our
amazing puzzle pieces to always have. And when you understand the PFC lifestyle, you're like, okay, this is great. These are great puzzle pieces because they're superfoods. They're really, really, really going to serve your body and they're going to keep your blood sugar stabilized. And you must add those in like everything.
We can add it to almost everything. There's not a lot that we don't add it to. And then there's several other complete proteins and several other incomplete proteins depending on what you eat. And a quick Google search can show you those things too. Like chia seeds is another one, and so even things like spirulina, it's great for protein. And so it's kind of fun to find those things and then figure out how we add them in.
You make a really good point because like pea protein, spirulina, chia, they actually hemp seeds are considered complete proteins. So people will be thinking, oh, well, they're complete protein. That's fine. But they're not quite enough of the completeness, but it has all 9 of the amino acids, just not enough of all of them. That's why layering volume and variety is so important. So it all comes back to that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of fun. A couple of the other ones that we haven't talked about yet that most people think of are your tofus or your tempehs. And then
What do we
they
have to
also,
think about with those? Because that's soy-based, which
yes.
can be problematic for a lot of people when it comes to just soy in general and hormones.
Mhm.
So what do we have to think about when we're looking for a tempeh or a tofu or edamame or something?
Exactly. So you'll definitely want to you'll want to buy organic for sure. It's one of those foods that's a no-brainer with this one. You need to buy organic with this one just because of how they're processed.
Mhm.
And then I guess if you want to say we limit our intake of it, nobody's going to be eating tofu 3 times a day, right? Or edamame 3 times a day. And of course we don't do that either. And so, if we have it once or twice a week, we don't have any inflammatory issues with it that we've seen pop up. And so, of course, just like everything else that we bring in, we just listen to our bodies and see how that makes us feel. But edamame is the most unprocessed of the soy products, and then tempeh, and then you get up to tofu, which is kind of like the white bread of the soy products. So if you're looking for a cleaner version, or a less processed version, I should say, go with the edamame.
Amazing. Amazing. All right. So any other kind of little hints or tidbits on the protein piece?
A lot of people think about beans, legumes, nuts, nut butter. Whenever
People
you
tell
talk
me
to
all the
somebody,
time about peanut butter being a protein.
yeah, exactly. So what we found is that we really have to pay attention when we're adding any legumes, beans, any kind of, pinto beans, white beans, things like that, as well as nuts and any kind of nut butter. With the legumes, they're very high in carbs. And so even though they do have a lot of fiber and they do have some protein, you still have to be very conscientious of when you're adding it in and make sure that you're not, going heavy on those carbs again.
Yeah, and the
then,
reason for that though is because of our blood sugar. Carbs will spike our blood sugar, but carbs, we need carbs. They fuel our brain, they give us energy. But when we overcarb, and we know when this happens very often, when we have a blood sugar spike and then a blood sugar drop, that's when we can see energy issues and sleep issues, metabolism issues, because that wreaks havoc on our hormones and our metabolism. So those beans are super healthy, but if they're not going to be balanced with more complete protein, you're going to get that blood sugar spike, which is why I know in all of my years, so many vegans have trouble with health and gaining weight because of those legumes, all of those are the beans, and it's not to say you can't have that.
No, not
You guys
at
have them all
all.
the time.
Right, exactly. So we'll add them in the correct proportions so that, again, our blood sugar is not spiking. But going back to kind of our past, before we met you, we ate a lot of nuts and a lot of nut butters. And we're not talking about if they're not healthy or not. They're very healthy for you, but they are very high in fat. So yes, you do get protein with them, but they're very high in fat. And so again, it's not hard. You just have to be very conscientious of how much you're adding and what you're adding it to.
It's about education.
Right. Yeah. We'd have scoops and scoops and scoops. And so, we were getting our protein, which we were, but we were also like quadrupling, going way, way over. We just didn't eat that much fat in each of our meals. So
and you
legumes
eat
are
those
one of those things, the volume doesn't really count.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, that's a great point.
That's a great way to put it.
That's why I really think a good rule of thumb, especially for people really just starting out, is to think volume variety around vegetables, but also variety around, honestly, all of it, right? But volume, especially around vegetables. No, it's really, really important because it's not ever about anything being good or bad. It's always about serving our body or serving our soul. And we want to serve our body as much as possible. So if we're not knowledgeable about the balance, we could actually wreak havoc on our body. And that's not what we're trying to do. Even the healthy stuff can do that. And okay. So as we're thinking about all of those beans and seeds and nuts, we got to be conscious. So nuts and seeds, protein and fat, beans, legumes, protein and carbs.
Yes, exactly.
but
Exactly.
higher in fat, higher in carbs. So that's when you want to really add in like some of those things that you were talking about: nutritional yeast, brewer's yeast, hemp seeds, in some ways, depending on what combination you need.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
I
Those
love
have
it.
been our go-tos. Yeah, for sure.
Well, you're talking about the foundational, and then you build meals on top of that, is my
Right.
guess. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. That's exactly it. Yeah.
So we recently in October, which I'm super excited about, released in our entire month of our recipe subscription. Now we have our recipe subscription, and that's open. Well, it's only open very rare. It's open a couple times a year. When it is open to the public, which is amazing because typically a lot of these things we keep, we have only of our clients can access, but our recipe subscription, anybody can. It's currently closed, but if you do want to go see our recipe subscription, especially because October is dedicated to all plant-based recipes, thanks to Bev and Ray, you can go to disruptivenutrition.com/recipes, put your name on the wait list. We'll give you some recipes to hold you over, but you can be on the wait list. And when it opens, you can have access to that. And I mean, there's more than 600 recipes in there. There's a ton of plant-based already, but I love that we have an entire month dedicated to plant-based recipes. And I think people would be surprised at just how many recipes can be plant-based and can be almost like literally anything you can dream of. You and Ray have pretty much figured out how to make it plant-based. And while I'm the world's worst vegan, this is what makes you the world's best vegan. And I love the recipes. It's not that I won't eat them. I love them. I just don't want to have to figure them out. And you guys have done that. But one of the things that I think you've been so successful about this is around your mindset about being vegan, about going plant-based. And that's really the third piece, the third tip that you have. What's your philosophy about being vegan and variety and all the types of meals that you can have out there?
Yeah, I love that. So while Carrie has that shirt, let me see if I can show you this mug. It says, anything you can eat. Is it showing up? It says on this side, it says, I can eat vegan. It's not showing up. So anything you can eat, I can eat vegan. And that's kind of what our mindset has been going into this. It almost, in a way, had to be, because you don't want to feel like you can't have something, right? Nobody ever wants to feel that way. So we've kind of come into it as, we have our basic recipes, of course, every household does, right? That you kind of rotate through. But when we think of something that we want to have that we haven't quite made into vegan yet, we'll just sit down and we'll figure out how it can be done, right? And so any meal, any recipe that we are feeling like we want to eat, we just come at it from the way that there is a solution. Everything is figure outable, right?
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about your French toast. You guys really wanted French toast. And I love this because your why is so big for you, and Ray's why is so much because he loves you. And I just think that that's such an incredible way to approach this. But you guys wanted French toast. And I feel like for Ray, whose why wasn't so much around really being committed to being vegan, it was more around loving you and supporting you. It would have been easy for him to be like, whoa, this is just, I'm just going to go crack some eggs and make my French toast. But you didn't. You guys sat together with the mindset of everything is figure outable, thanks to Marie Forleo, and really came up with a solution. So tell us how you built French toast for yourself to be completely vegan.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when we sat down to do this, the first piece, obviously, of French toast is the bread, right? And so we got together a couple of our different bread options to look at the PFC count on each of those. And I actually started out with both of those and kept adding things to each of those to figure out which one would better balance us, would better serve us.
And you're really doing research, like online, you're like Googling out like the different, like the nutritional content of different types of food. And it's not that we track our food or count calories, but if you're building a meal, you really want to make sure it's not going to spike your blood sugar. So you're trying to keep your proteins, fats, and carbs in check.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and then we knew that, of course, we wanted that egg layer around it. So there's different egg substitute options out there.
Which one that you often use?
The one that we most often use is probably called Just Egg. There's
And what's
also
it made
another
of?
one it's made out of mung bean. So it's really
Mung
cool
bean.
because you can buy mung beans, and I have dried mung beans up in my cupboard. You can buy dried mung beans and soak them and whip them up in your blender, and then it's just like Just Eggs, but not as convenient, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, so you can do that also. So that's we do that,
Okay.
sometimes too, but the Just Egg is very convenient. I can throw it in the freezer and then just defrost a little bit of what I need all the time. So we figured out how much of that needed to go around the bread, or 2 slices of bread or 3 slices of bread. As we were building it, we were trying to figure out how much we could have, or if we wanted it around the bread, but then we also wanted some eggs on the side. That was another one of our like options to do with that.
Yeah.
And then we really love peanut butter on our French toast. I don't know if, that's a
That
thing
is
for us.
not one of my favorite things to put on my French toast, but I will go with it because everybody gets to do their thing.
That's right. It's to do their thing. I love that. Yeah, we really love that peanut butter on our French toast. So we wanted to have a tablespoon or 2 of that. And so we put that into as we were figuring out both of these different options. And then we looked at different kinds of syrup that we could have, maple syrup, or there's some different brands, of course, some different styles on that. So we kind of plugged those in there.
Yeah.
And depending on where you live, what you can get, that's
Yep.
another part of it too.
So you really took the
once we-
time to really think through this, and it took more time, but now you guys could just go and make French toast anytime you want, knowing it's vegan, knowing it's going to serve your body, and knowing it's not going to spike your blood sugar out of whack. And so that little bit of time you took with the mindset that you can do this, and not just taking the easy way out because your why was so big, was so powerful. And so we're not suggesting everybody has to go fully vegan, but we are saying that this is possible. And thanks to Bev and Ray, we have so many tools in place to be able to support you. So one of those tools is obviously things like this podcast, and we'll be continuing to tap into Bev and Ray's knowledge. And as they're doing things, they can post it up on our Diet Disruptor Squad Facebook group, where is our free Facebook group that people can join and learn from. We have our recipe subscription that, while it's not open right now, go check it out, disruptivenutrition.com/recipes. And I want to share with something that I just think we are all so excited about here at Disruptive Nutrition, that Bev and Ray and the rest of our team worked on really hard, was an entire learning portal on how to live a plant-based PFC lifestyle. And so we've never had this before. This is something that all of our current clients automatically get. So if you're a client, go into your portal, because it is there waiting for you to be able to just up level and add this next step into your nutrition if you want to. But for those of you that are like, I'm plant-based and I want to learn a little bit more about this learning portal is incredible. So Coach Bev, Coach Deb, myself, and a whole bunch of the rest of our team, Julia and Steph and Allie and Jake, and so many of them, worked really hard over the last few months to take all of the research, all of the knowledge, and put it into a plant-based resource. So when you see this, it's like really powerful. Creating plant-based meals. There's a video here of me teaching a lot of the stuff that not just I've learned in my own experience, but that Bev and Ray have taught me, and all this information that kind of goes along with it. And what's so great about this is really understanding how to create plant-based meals and how to get enough protein, all of those pieces, and then maintaining this plant-based lifestyle, reading a label, how to get that PFC balance. You guys even have this incredible spreadsheet that people can use to be able to build their own meals and make it super simple. We don't typically do anything like that when it comes to non-plant-based PFC meals, because it's really super simple. But because having a plant-based, truly balanced lifestyle is a little more challenging, they have made that work completely out of your hands. Like, you don't have to even worry about that. I love this. So we are just now releasing that portal that is open to everybody. And so you can go to disruptivenutrition.com/plant-based PFC, and go check it out. It's super low priced and it's lifetime access, and you'll get to hear from Bev and Ray themselves in that portal. So I love so much that you are so committed to teaching this to people wherever they are on their journey, whether you're me or you, and anywhere in between. So just to recap really quickly, the three kind of pieces that that you needed to uncover, that you needed to unpack. What was number one?
Number one was variety, volume, and we added that third V of vegetables. Yes.
There you go. And two?
Number two was, what was number two?
Complete
proteins. Complete proteins. Yes.
There
And that was our biggest learning curve, actually. So yes, complete proteins.
That is the one that I think eludes most. And then three?
Number three was our mindset, knowing that we could do this.
And that plant-based living can open up a whole new world of possibilities, of excitement, of joy, of health. And we want to be able to help get you there if that is something that you want to do. I can't wait to incorporate some of these new recipes and this portal into our lifestyle. And I don't feel like I have to choose either or. I can totally balance it in both ways. So Bev and Ray, thank you guys so much for all of your insight, your commitment, your dedication. And if you are excited about plant-based options, put in the comments, plant-based PFC. Go check out the portal right now and go see if this is something that you want to tap into. Also, go check out the recipes. Go grab some free ones right now while you're waiting for the recipes to come out. All right, you guys, thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.